Welcome to Watermark's Church Leadership Podcast, a conversation with church leaders for church leaders. And I'm your host, John McGee. Well, hey friends, welcome back. Joined in the studio today by two of my very, very good friends, John Cox, our executive pastor. John, welcome, brother.
Hey, it's great to be here.
And then a regular feature here of the podcast, Dave Bruskas. Welcome back, brother.
Glad to be here. Didn't realize I'd reached that status of regular.
Wow, legend. Yeah, absolutely.
Good to be with you.
Dave is a pastoral legend. So, hey guys, today I want to talk about a leader and their personal finances, which I kind of think is funny. This week we are doing this the same week. If you listen to this years from now, that we're doing this the week that all the tariffs were announced and kind of the back and forth on the tariffs. The market, has had some of its lowest days ever, or kind of biggest drops, and then also I think some of it is a point percentage or as a raw points. I think one of the top two biggest updates. And so some of the world is completely losing their marbles. Some people don't care, didn't even know it was a thing, which is really funny. And so that's always going to be there. It's going to be there, next year. It's going to be there 10 years from now, and that's the environment. This kind of the uncertainty. Sometimes the scarcity mentality that people have is always going to exist for leaders, especially those in the church. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I think, if we hit the ball, deep, what I'd love to see is some practical kind of advice. These are just basic blocking and tackling. And some of these will just be good reminders for some others, and some others will go, yeah, I probably should take some steps here. And then I think on the other side, just some, unique kind of speaking and giving some wisdom to those who are in ministry. I don't know that it's materially different, but there are some unique both opportunities and challenges in the ministry kind of space. So Dave, let's start with you, brother. As we try to frame this thing up before we start, clicking down on specifics, just, why is this, let me ask it this way, is this different? Is this topic different for, let's just pick an avatar, kind of like a young pastor. Is this different for him than someone who is selling insurance right out of college? So thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. It is different. It's different in a couple of ways. One is, I would say that most young pastors in that predicament are probably not paid a lot of money. Might even make an argument that they're paid less than market rate compared to other professions. So number one, that's scarcity can be an issue. Then the second thing is, I think as pastors, leaders, elders, we're called to a standard that's exemplary. I think there's this idea that in Scripture that we are to honor Christ in all aspects of our life. And leadership is, there's things that are taught, but there's things that are caught. And so we really want to live in a way that we're inviting others to follow us as we follow Christ in all aspects of our lives, including money. And I think if you listen to sage, older pastors, older than me, older than you, older than any of us here, we had a chance to do that recently with someone. They're going to tell you the biggest pitfalls in ministry are always the big three. It's money, it's sex, and it's power. And how you handle those is really, really important for not only the integrity of your own heart and ministry, but for the fame of Jesus.
Yeah, that's good. I love the way you start so oftentimes, Dave. It's like, hey, this is about you being an example to those that you lead. It's not just about what's going on in your own soul. Okay, I'm going to save some of the practical stuff. John Cox, I feel like you're just going to, I know you. There'll be a short master class on some of the practical. Can I start back with, I think, one of the unique challenges for leaders who are in the church, and I'm just going to tee up this topic of contentment. When I run into young pastors, a lot of them, are thinking, boy, I'm really excited to serve God, to use my gifts. I have something that feels like a call. And these would apply to anyone, but that's the person I really want to talk to right now. All that's true. And also, there's just stuff I don't have. My car is always in the shop, and my kids don't get to do stuff. And my wife and I don't get to do, things that our peers do. And that's hard. That's kind of like when the microphones are turned off and the cameras aren't on. That's the kind of thing I hear from young pastors. And it's just this wrestling of both are true. I do feel a calling, but darn it, man, sometimes it just feels hard. And I think if I could pick a topic, it would be contentment. So any thoughts, any wisdom on that, any personal stories, reflections for you guys on the topic of like contentment around personal finances for young leaders?
Yeah, I mean, let's just start off by saying it is hard, right? The less
Let's
money you
start
make,
there.
the more challenging it is.
Yeah.
You've got less room for mistakes. You can do less, and the people around you are doing things that you just can't do. And so, and then you add on top of that, there is a multi-billion-dollar marketing going on in the United States and other parts of the world that is convincing you that if you only had gadget X, then you'd be happy, right? And the whole purpose of that is to say, listen, you're unhappy, but this product would fix that.
Yes.
And so you're inundated by that all of the time.
Yeah.
And so it really starts with just saying, hey, this has got to be a conscious choice.
Yep.
And because if you get sucked into that vortex, you're just going to get carried downstream.
That's right. You don't accidentally end up content.
No, not at all.
That one, you won't accidentally find yourself in that land. So, yes. Okay, so we are a little bit older now than we were when we started, so we can reflect back. And I was thinking about this last night, just what it was like to raise a young family and battle with this idea of contentment. And as I reflect back, I don't remember. Of course, there were some times where I lacked contentment for just stuff I had. But honestly, I think as I look back, my biggest struggle with contentment was not being able to provide things that others could for their kids or their spouse. Like that was, if I had to check myself and just kind of bring my heart back, I thought about 1 Timothy 6:6, godliness with contentment is great gain. And I would just kind of let that be a refrain when I would feel this coming up in my heart. But boy, our kids, Dallas is a crazy place. It is a crazy place. Our kids would come home and said, hey, did you, was it so-and-so's house? They have a 3-story house, and Dad, they've got an elevator. I don't know. They might even have 2, I just and which could not be more different, than their experience. And then, in Dallas, a lot of people have homes, and really the places you would expect. And I remember one of the families that they would run with had a home in Portugal, a summer home in Portugal. I was like, how does that even work? What do you, anyway. So, and here they are, it's like, hey, Dad, I want new shoes. I was like, we're gonna have to wait on that. And so their experience was very, very different. And reflecting back, I don't think my kids truly missed out in those moments. Yep. They were like, hey, I want the shoes that everyone else is getting, and I can't have them today. But I think we were able to give them a lot. We were able to give them the stuff that money couldn't buy, and we didn't have that distraction. We didn't have the easy button to press and get ourselves out of it. We had to work. We had to trust. And reflecting back, I actually kind of liked the journey, even though it was hard. And so, Dave, I sent you a picture last night. I took my 2 oldest daughters and my 2 daughters and my wife, and we went to a concert down in Deep Ellum. So I sent Dave a picture, and he's like, what rave are you at? It was not a rave. And so I knowing this podcast was going to be in the morning, I thought about a time where, this is probably, 15 years ago. It's now probably 12 years ago. And my oldest daughter wanted to go to this concert. All of her friends were going. All of them were. And the ticket was just a really expensive ticket. And I just thought, I can't do this. To buy that would be to go into debt. And I just told Pam, I was like, I really want to do that. It doesn't make any sense, And I said, I'll set a threshold, and if tickets come down, I'll buy it. And we couldn't go. So she stayed home with me. And I bet we did something fun. I didn't ask her last night. And then, last night, we went, and I remember we walked in the venue, and my youngest daughter said, Dad, you're going to be the oldest person in this, this whole place, And I was like, I'm not either. And she goes, I think you are. And I wasn't. I thought I saw one other guy that was older than me, but he probably owned the place. I think it was his place, would be my guess. And, and so we're there, we just had fun, and we went out to eat beforehand, but I just thought we could have stayed home. We could have sat in the backyard. We could have listened to this young upcoming artist and eaten a ham sandwich, and we would have had a great time. And we worked really, really hard. And I was thinking about, like, I had a little Evernote file of all the things that were free in Dallas to do, especially on the weekends. And so I just owned the weekends. And so it would be Saturday if we didn't have sports, or even if we did, I would just try to make it really, really fun. I knew I didn't have an unlimited checkbook that I could just throw money at it. I had to think about creativity and planning ahead, and just kind of hustling a little bit. And they had a really, really rich childhood. And then we just had to make decisions. Are we going to do fun stuff or have a really nice house? We couldn't do both. And we said, for us, it was modest home, big adventures. And by big adventures, not extravagant adventures, like 6 kids in a hotel room, and someplace on Arizona you can't find on a map. It was that. But there was a richness. And so if you're a young pastor and you're thinking, I can't provide my family what others, can, I think what I want to let you know, this side of it, is you probably can't. You will not be able to buy your family a summer home in Portugal, right? Unless your church is set up materially different than Watermark. But you can give them things that guy can't. And if your kids love Jesus, and they're not entitled, we're seeing entitlement in waves with some of the young leaders that are coming up. They're not entitled. They love Jesus. You've got a great relationship. I just feel like you gave them something that they'll be much more grateful for after the fact. And so anyway, those were my reflections on contentment. Anything else before
Can I add to that?
Please.
What I've learned is it's much easier to deny myself than to deny my family.
That's it. That's well said, John.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it really became an issue once I got married and started having kids. Right. So one, you need to recognize that so you don't get surprised.
Yeah.
And then 2, rather than seeing that as a deficit, now it's a challenge. Like, how do I maximize the amount of fun and joy, and in a way that's not spending a lot of money?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and celebrate. I think that you always look for your competitive advantage if you're in business, or I don't use that word in ministry, but we have stories of God at work, and would share those. And so, hey, Dad doesn't get free weeks in Hawaii because he hit his sales goals, but you're not going to believe what happened this week at church. This family, they literally had divorce papers in hand, and we talked to them and we read scripture and they repented, and this family stays together. Can you believe that? What's that worth? And to give that to your children really, really is a gift. So let's talk about some of the. Okay, so. I think that would be one of the things that I think people are always going to have to struggle with. One of the pitfalls, of ministry is just the fact that you're handling money. You're sitting on top of platforms. You have you already mentioned power as well, Dave. You have power. So how does that work when it comes to your personal finances? I mean, it feels really like a setup. You don't make a lot of money. And here you are. You've got sometimes you have big budgets that you oversee, and you've got power and persuasion over people that can move the needle for you. So, thoughts on that? Best practices, train wrecks you've seen?
Yeah, this is an area I really struggled in with early on, John. That went to right out of college. Karen and I got married. I was working for an accounting firm downtown Dallas, making fine money. She was in a retail management program, and so we lived off her salary and invested mine entirely. Then we get through seminary, and then we go into ministry, and things are very different. She's at home with kids, and I'm paid a salary that's less than I ever made in the accounting world, significantly less. And so, and I think this is where we really have to be careful. When you get in that position where you don't know where the money's going to come from to pay the bills, you can begin to justify things you wouldn't otherwise. And so here I am, we're struggling. We have pretty modest goals, I think. We want to have a house in the neighborhood that we're doing ministry in, and it was a very middle-class neighborhood. As a matter of fact, my experience was different than what you described, where my kids interacted with a lot of peers that the only meal they ate was at a Title I school.
Wow.
Didn't have food at home. And so
Wow.
they grew up in a church context of feeling pretty well-to-do, even though we were scraping to get by. But we wanted to be able to send them to college eventually someday. So we wanted to put money aside. We wanted to have a home. And I mean, that was it. There was no, there was no
home in Portugal.
No, there was no home in Portugal. It wasn't even a thought. There was no, discretionary income beyond that. And so I began to justify in ways now I'm embarrassed about that my in essence, offering to the church, because I think we could easily make the case that it's biblical to give to the local church. My gift was taking a low salary.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget being preaching through a series, I think it was Malachi, getting to the point of, hey, let's give, and then all of a sudden realizing I'm asking people to do something I'm not doing. And it just, the conviction struck me in that moment. And I realized I need to change. I got to relook at everything, but I want to give. I want to be, I want to lead by example. And so began to do that. The thing that was most helpful for me in that season, John, is I just made a decision that I'm going to be financially transparent in front of my elders.
There you go.
They're going to know about my marriage. They're going to know about my sin. If I were going to ask for a raise, I came to the table with, here's my budget. Here's why I'm asking for this raise. And I had men around me that genuinely wanted to be as generous as they possibly could within the means of what we had as a church. So, but I just decided early on, I'm just going to, if I continue to live in this space in secret, I'm going to do great damage. I love the conversation we had about discontentment, because discontentment is contagious.
Yeah, that's good.
How many
good.
kids, pastors' kids hate the church because they didn't pay my dad enough. My dad brought that home. Yep. We bore the burden of that, or even church staffs. It happens. So anyway, I made the decision that I wanted to lead by example in finances, what little I had, and it's tough to lead people that are making X times more than you are and everything in this realm, and are sophisticated in their investments. But I thought I want to lead, and to do so, I got to be totally transparent with our elders, and I've just got to say, here's my books. Take a look. Every penny is going to be accounted for, and you guys get to see it.
I love it. I was talking with a very, very well-known pastor who I assume financially is he's doing great. So we had this pastor on we had that young leaders cohort that we did this year that you guys were a part of, and so I just asked him, hey, who do you want to, if you could talk to anybody, who would you want to talk to? And they mentioned this pastor, and so I just called him up and said, hey, I've got these young leaders, would you want to talk to him? He said, great. So we talked, and I think this topic came up about kind of finances and things like that, and to your point, Dave, about just shining light on it. He takes his tax returns and gives them to the elders and just said, I just want you to know, so he probably has, he has income that is not, from the church and things like that, but he just like, I want to just shine light on it. That was his admonition to these young guys is don't do stuff in secret, just and assume, John Cox, you say this all the time. Hey, just assume it's all going to come out. And so if you live that way, then you don't have to manage anything. You don't have to control any kind of narrative. You can, if someone says, I've got questions, you're like, you can ask those 5 men. They'll tell you anything.
Your memory doesn't have to be good if you're just totally transparent.
But he just said, I just give them my tax returns, man. And so that, which has your giving on there, that has all of your income, and if you had any other kind of side things going, it's all there, right? And so ask me any questions, and I just thought, man, if you want to shine light on it, that's a great way. It's a great way to do it. So, John, do you have any thoughts on just mistakes guys make using the platform, using their budgets, or any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I just think it's easy to justify stuff if you feel like you don't have enough.
Yes.
Right.
That is a trap.
That's the thing. There's a couple of things in ministry. Pride, obviously, that's a big one you got to avoid. But justification is another one.
Yes.
Right. There's a reason why it's difficult to finish well in ministry, and we want to be there at the end of the day, going, hey, we ran the race, we finished it, and we're finishing well. Yep.
That's if someone who disqualifies himself for ministry, if it's a movie, oftentimes the opening scene is, I felt like I was slighted and I was owed.
Yes.
And that's the opening scene. And then what happens from there is a little bit different for everybody. But when they trace it back, I've heard so many people say, I got into trouble because I felt like I was owed. I felt like, because I was serving God, I was due this. Or they're surprised that they didn't get any kind of special air cover. Like I made some really risky financial decisions and things like that, which, honestly is kind of part of, Pam and I's story. Candidly, that, we were doing great. And I thought, it's like, I'm just going to give back to God, my time, because I will be, I've got a little extra. And I mean, it unwound in ways that still were astounding to me. I got a call from the SEC. I don't know if anyone's ever got a call from the SEC, but they weren't calling to wish me Merry Christmas. They called to say, "Hey, your investments are are all gone. We've frozen the accounts of the places that you've invested in. We're putting, we're investigating, but I wouldn't expect to see any of your money." That was a tough one. We had some other ones, and then we had, a partnership where we had, some of the debt that was there. And in hindsight, I don't know. I don't think this was part of the calculus, but I probably thought, I'm serving God. He's just going to take care of it. And it's just not true. Like the same laws apply to you, and so we had to climb out of that. That was not fun. And, I think we did that. We shone some light on it, and just kind of walked that with our friends, and God showed up. And in some ways it was the best of times, candidly, as we were, metaphorically back against the Red Sea, and God showed up. It was really fun. But
can I jump into,
please.
John? I think there is a base level thing, which is, listen, the Lord is going to take care of us, and so I think that's just as much as contentment is a big deal, right? Which is just making sure that hey, the Lord's going to take care of me.
Yeah.
And the scriptures are just full of verses about, hey, if He clothes the lilies of the field.
Yep.
And so when you are struggling, those are good passages to go back to.
Yes. Psalm 37:25 is one I've thought about a lot. I was young, and now I'm old. So leaning into that one. And I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children beg for bread. Just never seen it. Now, kids not having, the brand new sneakers or the latest iPhone. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that a lot. I've just never seen a godly person. I've never seen their kids starve. I haven't seen it yet. Anyway, it doesn't mean that I won't. And it probably won't happen to us. And so, just to round out the topic of, power and money and things like that, I want to make a plea to just be wise and to think not can I get away with it, but if this all came to light, how would people think? If it came to light, not in my church, but even hit the newspaper, how would people think? And so that's just going to take some wisdom and some erring on the side of caution, I think. So there was a guy on our staff. He made leather goods on the side. They were super cool. And so I think for our church leaders conference, he said, I can provide these. And the team got really excited about it. That'd be great. And I was like, but you know what? Here's the thing, brother. Like I don't feel really comfortable about letting you profit off of the church here. So let's just don't do it. And I think he ended up saying, no, that's great. I just want to do this. Perfect. He left our church and moved to another city, and something came up again where we could kind of contract with him. And because he wasn't on staff, I said, well, just charge us what it's worth. Like if you make a profit, this is your job. I would love we don't need charity on this one. And it was different because he wasn't part of this organization. And there was a check in my spirit. Like I don't want the budget of Watermark to enrich the budget of someone else here on staff personally. You're gonna have all kinds of decisions. If my wife Pam had a flower shop, and she should hustle and she should try to grow her flower shop. But I can't stand up, beginning of February and say, hey, Pam created this special code for you, all you guys. We've got you 10% off, Watermark. If you go to the website and do, Watermark 10, then you get 10% off my wife's flowers, from the front. You can't do that, unless you did that for every single small business, in your congregation. But you're going to feel like, the thought's going to cross your mind. I can. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah. And you want to err on the side of caution, integrity, trusting God, not manipulating things, and not taking advantage of the incredible gift of influence and leadership that God's given you. It's a sacred trust.
Yeah, just think about the money changers in the temple.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
kind of like
exactly.
that.
exactly.
Warning, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's talk about some practical things, guys. So John, let's just talk nuts and bolts. So we could, again, all church leaders, but think about, it's a young guy, young gal, they're starting out, just some baseline fundamentals, blocking and tackling, good decisions that could be made at this point.
Yeah, well, and this is fresh on my mind because, one of my favorite things that I'm doing right now is I've got a FaceTime Bible study. And so with my son and my son-in-law, my future son-in-law, all of whom are in their early 20s.
It's amazing.
And then my 92-year-old dad. And so, they live all over the country, right? My dad lives in Oregon. One of my son-in-laws is in New York City. The future son-in-law is down in Florida. But the great thing is that once a week, we get together on a FaceTime Bible study. And this latest one, we went through the book, Simple Money, Rich Life.
Okay.
And I cannot recommend that book more highly.
Great.
What I would say is it's basic, but it is perfect if you are just starting your journey.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? And it lays out just a couple of quick principles that, one of them is, hey, you should not spend all you make, right? That's a bad idea. And so the first part of the book is just listen. In the short term, you need to create some financial margin.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by spending less than you make, right? So part of that involves having, a budget so you know where it's going. If you write down everything you spend, it will make you much more aware of where your money is going.
Always.
And he even has an idea listen, you don't have to do a budget for everything, but pick the category you are most likely to overspend in and create a budget for that one. And so I think it really starts there with, hey, in the short term, creating financial margin will benefit you long term. So you're making short term sacrifices for long term gain.
Yep.
So that's a big one. Another area where I see young people get into debt is they get into debt, and so that becomes normal.
Yeah.
In our society, it's normal that you put stuff on credit cards, and yet that is bondage. And so making sure that, hey, I'm not getting into debt.
Yep.
And I think that's a second big principle when you're thinking about that. And then a third one would just be, hey, listen, you want to invest in assets that appreciate, not depreciate. Okay? So a mistake that I'll often see is young people will go buy a late model car, right? And they'll finance it. And so what they're doing is a car depreciates over time. So you never want to invest in a depreciating asset if you can help it. Right? So go get a beater of a car. You don't have to take out a loan. By the way, I've got several beaters. I've got 5 kids driving. I've got several beaters.
Oh, yes.
And so whereas other things like putting money in your retirement, setting aside $100 a month in a savings account that's automatically taken out of your paycheck, right? So you don't even see it, so you don't remember it. Those are the small kinds of building blocks that it might be difficult in the short run, but you're gonna be glad in the long run.
Yeah.
So you can either enjoy now and pay for it later, or you can pay for it now and enjoy it later. And so I think that's another principle.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to hurt kind of either way. You get to choose your pain, and it'll be pleasurable either way. You get to choose when and where that pleasure comes. So, I don't know, John, that there's anything that we could say that someone like Dave Ramsey hasn't.
Hey, go do the 7 baby steps. That's the practical.
Right, but basics. If you're not saving for your retirement, do so and start. Even if you're at zero, do much more than you did last year. And when I was a previous church I was at was part of a denomination, and there was a little box when you went to kind of choose your investments for your 401k or 403b in this case. You could choose to give to this fund, which was basically for pastors who had not saved anything for their retirement. So and it's a whole other issue, but they had opted out of Social Security and they hadn't saved for their retirement, and so the denomination was taking care of them, but they needed funds, which meant there were men who. They were just like every other young pastor. They were really thin on money, and there were things that were just kind of screaming needs, and they weren't putting any money away. And so they found themselves, in retirement with no ability to provide for themselves or provide for their spouse or even kids, grandkids, those kinds of things. And so it does hurt But there is a discipline, back to you, Dave. I think that is actually good modeling to other people, and you just cannot. You're going to have to figure out where to drive your lifestyle stake and stay there. John, over and over again, you talk about just people raising their standard of living as their any kind of raise or any kind of additional income comes in. And if you can just drive your lifestyle stake, there's incredible freedom that comes there to not try to level up in your house, to try to not level up your cars, all those kinds of things. And you might have to live differently than those that are around you. And yet I've just seen people with incredible contentment, and they're just free. They're not stressed out about money. So this week, when markets are gyrating like they really haven't in the last, 5-10 years, they don't care. They don't care. They're putting 10 to 15% of their meager salary into their 401k. They have no debt, and they are just waking up and doing it all over again, giving generously and enjoying the people that are around them. And there is a joy and contentment that is not there, with those who have 10x in terms of the income. Cars, I was thinking today that I'm a big proponent of used cars. You guys have been in my car. Someone stole my back seat. I've got a Tahoe, if that means anything to you. Someone stole my back seat at Watermark, by the way, like in the parking lot.
Like a church member?
Probably somebody on staff. They stole it, and so now that I don't have little kids, I don't need as many seats. I just told Pam, I was like, I'm not even gonna. It doesn't bother me. I'm just not gonna replace it. And one of my kids backed into a pole. This is like 5-6 years ago, learning to drive, and I just thought, I don't care. I'm not gonna fix it. And so so I've got this. I've got a Tahoe. I don't know. It might be diminishing my credibility just as a as a leader. Probably not, but I've got a car with no back seat and a dent in the back, and it just doesn't matter. And my plan is to drive the thing until it just completely explodes. But we do have to take it to the mechanic. Something always will break at $50 or $100 increments. And I have thought, if you have a used car and a mechanic that's trustworthy, like, though, that works. And if you can't find someone that you trust that isn't always trying to upsell you 1,000 other things, an old used car might not work. But every year we look at this, Pam's car, my car, and we are just winning. We've got a great mechanic who doesn't. He goes, I wouldn't fix that if I were you. I was like, great. He goes, because your car might not be running this time next year. I was like, I know. And so he's not trying to take my money. And so, no, Dave Ramsey may talk about that, but I thought a used car with a great mechanic works. A shady mechanic you're always walking out of there with an $800 bill probably isn't going to work for you. So, John, any other thoughts on how about that? This is not legal advice. We don't have lawyers, but they would say anything we have said, we will say, is not financial advice. Go do your own thing. But tactically, how would you save? Let's just say they have no 403b, 401k. Like, what tactically do they do? If you could pick one kind of vehicle to invest in, what would that be?
Yeah, well, I think used cars, you're just speaking about vehicles, is always the good way to go. And certainly you can do some research, and there are some very reliable brands, right? What I would say more broadly is really two things, John. One is you want to be saving if you can.
Yep.
Right? And so it's just, keep it simple.
Yep.
Right. I've got a great story where my first day of business school, the finance professor got up and he put a picture of a guy up and he said, does anybody know who that is? And no one knew who it was. Right. But he said, let me give him a name. That's Jimmy Fisher. Right. Who knows what Jimmy Fisher does for a living? And no one knew. And so he says, Jimmy Fisher follows General Electric 50 hours a week. And he says, the CEO of General Electric at the time was Jack Welch. He says, if Jack Welch wants to know what's going on in one of his plants, you know who he calls? He calls Jimmy Fisher, because Jimmy Fisher is going to give it to him straight. And the point was, right, is that investing in individual stocks, right, you're up against sophisticated people that are tracking that.
All the Jimmy Fishers.
Yes. Yeah. And so you are much better off just diversifying and buying an index fund. That's the simple point. But it's keep it simple, right? And so that's how I would think about it, right? It's just put it away, forget it for a long period of time.
That's it.
Time is your friend. There's something just called the rule of 72. And the rule of 72 is that if you take an investment that's earning a certain amount, like let's say it's earning 9% a year, you divide 9 into 72, that's 8, right? And that tells you it'll take you 8 years for your investment to double. And so the key in investing is start early. Start as soon as you can. Like I'm telling my kids that are in their late teens and early 20s, now is the time. Start setting money away.
Yes.
And so that's the lesson we're trying to drill into them. And so I think that's it. And, just a tangent for 1 second. A big mistake that I see people that want to go into ministry making is as they've gotten raises, they've allowed their standard of living to increase. Mm-hmm. And then it is very hard for them to take a ministry job that might offer less. And I'm telling you what, if you want to know sadness, it's people who feel like the Lord is calling them to go into ministry, and they have made decisions that make that very difficult for them to do, or very difficult to stay into ministry. And so that is a live on less than you make, and then take the difference and be wise with it. You can give it away, you can invest it, and just heed things where it just says, hey, we're storing up treasure in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy. And so let's just keep our focus that, hey, we're playing the long game and we're investing in eternal things.
So yeah, John, that's really good. I think the guys that I know that have the most peace in ministry, they had a financial, advisor tell them, put everything you can in your 401k, in your 403b, in a S&P index fund. Just keep doing it. Don't change it. Don't chase any individual stock. And they're moving into retirement, and they look in there and they go, man, that's a number I can live on. And it happened just over time. And if you can, friends, if you can, when you get in a bind, don't raid that thing. Things will come up. College is coming. Cars will break. But if you can just figure it out another way and let that ride, I think you'll be glad, and you won't need to be the recipient of that little tick box on that form I saw of, support a pastor that didn't save. Guys, we're reading through the Old Testament. We're reading through the whole Bible as a church, and so we've been reading a lot about the Levitical priesthood, and man, those guys, 12 tribes, and those guys didn't get any land. They rolled in, and all their buddies got land. And I was convicted, or just encouraged, maybe. Hey, you know what? Their inheritance wasn't stuff. It was God Himself.
Yeah.
That was what they got. They got the better end of the deal. So, Dave, you have any thoughts on that?
Man, that's such a good observation, John. I think when we talk about contentment, the secret of contentment has less to do with money and much more of the way you view Christ.
So
we had the three of us got to participate on earlier this week on a staff day of prayer, and someone made the comment, "Can you believe we get paid to pray together today?"
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of ministry, is that we are being compensated. Almost everyone probably listening makes a living wage or better, but you get to devote your full time to knowing Jesus and helping others do the same. And what a treasure. So I would encourage people to realize, hey, the real treasure here is Jesus. Money is just currency. It's a currency of worship. But at the end of the day, contentment comes from knowing Jesus intimately and loving and serving His people. So how rich are we really?
Yeah.
How rich is it to be able to, it's the ultimate treasure is Christ. And we get to pursue Him with our full-time vocation, because God's people are generous to provide us the means to do so.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, you control the narrative candidly in your own mind, in your own heart. You can take the same set of facts and come out bitter and entitled, feeling like you got slighted. You can take those same inputs and go home and tell your wife, "You're not going to believe this. We get to do this. This is unbelievable." Tell your kids around the table, and other people are eating filet and you're eating chicken thighs and off the grill, and you're just like, this is amazing. Can you believe that? Same set of data, and you get to control the narrative for your family and your own, and even more importantly, in your own soul. Well, friends, hey, thanks so much for listening. I hope there's an idea or two in here that's helpful. I think if we had a hope here, it would just be that all of us are making decisions today that we are going to be grateful for in the future. And we have a plan. We've got a plan for so many things. Many of us have really detailed, thoughtful, wise plans for our ministries. Some of us have not done the same for our personal finances. And it's just a plea to get your house in order, to set a great example for your body, and then to deal with the stuff in your own soul. Your contentment, to genuinely believe that godliness with contentment is great gain, and experience the freedom of that, so that you can then just give all of your best energies to the service of God and love of others, and not have to manage all of this stuff. If someone said later, hey, I just felt I'm now free to bring my best, and I don't have worry, and I've got a very simple plan, and I'm more effective, that would mean the world to us. And that is the goal. Not that you somehow would retire with a massive number, but there would be peace, and you would have contentment, which then would make you a much more effective minister of the gospel. So, friends, again, thank you so much for your time, for listening. If you've got ideas for future episodes or any questions that we can answer for you, other ways we can serve you, you can always reach us at clp@watermark.org. That's clp@watermark.org. We'll talk to you again next time.